What's up, A to Z Sports Live on this Thursday. Glad to have everybody along. Going to have a good show as the NFL Combine storylines continue in Indianapolis and the reaction to Ran Carthon talking with national and local media at the NFL Combine and what it means for the Tennessee Titans as we approach deeper and deeper into NFL draft season. Field drills start today, Sam, up in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. So we'll see where Ran Carthon and Mike Vrabel and other Titans members of their staff can start scouting some future Titans and also what to do with the overall draft strategy. So I think Carthon opened up a new conversation about making a move in the NFL draft for the Titans. So we'll discuss that. Sam also has a Titans draft scenario that I have no idea what it might be, but I'm curious to hear more about it and see what I think about it. So we'll talk about that and hear from Ran Carthon and the 11th overall pick coming up in April's draft. And then we have to update an awful situation because Jalen Carter is maybe the number one draft prospect on the big board if you go positionless. And the Georgia product has two warrants for his arrest in Athens, Georgia, for a car crash that ended up in the death of a teammate and a Georgia Bulldog staffer in January. And so we'll update how that situation has changed and Jalen Carter's statement that he put out after that came out. And then what happens with him and the NFL draft and the Chicago Bears, as that is an interesting situation. So Sam, we'll get this thing rolling, and the magic bucket is at Zach's house. Zach is not at Zach's house. Zach is in Denver, but so we will do a ask Sam if he knows what something is from the 90s or the early 2000s and find out if young Sam knows things. So we'll get to all of this, but Sam, welcome in. Let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, before we get things going today, though, make sure everybody shares the show if you're joining us this morning. That's the best way to support. It's the best way to grow the conversation and get more Titans fans involved with all of our offseason and season talk when it rolls around, too. And as we talk about the NFL draft, that's important. Sharing is caring. So if you're on Facebook, hit the share button, post it to your timeline. If you're on YouTube, maybe you tweet out, maybe you go ahead and send to a friend the YouTube link, get them in the conversation. You can retweet the show on Twitter at A to Z Sports. So however you found us, however you're consuming it, the best way to help us out is by sharing it and finding somebody else to join the A to Z family.
Yep. So let's get it going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Sam Phelan in this morning for Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us all over social media as we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Segment by segment links out on our Twitter timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram and TikTok for more Titans coverage. We do have to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process by going to see them in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care, and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans. That's better coverage, rates, and service. Learn more about a health plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. So, Sam, you and Zach yesterday talked about a lot of the updates from Ran Carthon, Ryan Tannehill situation where he said, Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback, and you guys discussed it a lot yesterday. But, I do think that is not necessarily as set in stone as Rand said on Tuesday at the NFL Combine. What else is Rand going to say in his first Combine as a NFL GM? But he also discussed about that 11th overall pick, and Ran Carthon, new Titans GM, dives into, hey, give me a call.
What are you thinking?
Well, we're always open for business. All the guys, you got my number, call me. But no, it's always about just being open to try to continue to add value. And so we'll listen and field every call and kind of see what comes from it.
You mentioned.
That's what he said, right? He said, we're open for business, always open for business. Give me a call. Austin, initial reaction for you. I know you've been caught up with a lot of updates and big things coming for A to Z Sports on the website side of things. So now kind of getting caught back up into the NFL Combine series. What do you think of when you hear Rand Carthon discussing the possibility of moving and shaking in this year's draft?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've been focused on the Titans potentially moving up in this draft and maybe going after the Chicago Bears up for sale #1 overall pick. And I don't think we've given a lot of attention to the idea of moving back in this NFL draft and trading back and getting more draft picks, because we know this team has a ton of holes on the roster that it needs to fill and needs to fill quickly, because there's also the conversation about tanking that Rand Carthon was asking. I know Buck talked about this last night on A to Z Sports Primetime. And I think we all know that, Mike Vrabel is a winner and Mike Vrabel wants to win. And so Mike Vrabel has no interest in tanking. And that's kind of what, and I'll play this video real quick, because that's what Peyton Manning told us back at the Pro Bowl.
They both want to win, that's all Mike cares about is winning. And Rand speaks the same language. And so I think the two of them can work well together. It's obviously important, I think, for head coaches and GMs to be in sync. You don't have to agree on everything, but you better be communicating and talking things out. And so I think they'll do that. And I think it could be a really good combination.
And so when Peyton Manning said that at the Pro Bowl, that's when I knew that there was zero intention to tank, and they were always going to try to win in 2023, regardless if that's what's actually best for this franchise long-term or not. But now trading back to fill some of these holes to win now is a new possibility that we haven't talked too much about. So curious about your thoughts as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, they want to win now. We know that that's always going to be Mike Vrabel's goal, and Mike Vrabel's going to keep them competitive. But I guess the unknown question that still remains, and is the topic of conversation regarding those comments from Rand, is what do they value most as like winning now? What helps them win now the most? Is it going to get that quarterback? Is it staying put, taking the best player available? Or is it potentially trying to move further back in the first round, get some other picks either in this year's draft or next year's draft, lower the, I guess, caliber of prospect you get in the first round, but you get more of them? Like, we don't really know how Rand and Mike are viewing how they view this draft class. For one, the positions of need in this draft class, and then what they view as that move to win now. It is interesting, but I agree with you. When I first heard the comments from Rand saying we're open for business, give me a call, there's one thing that he said in the video that I think I was like, is trading down a possibility after all? It kind of piqued my interest to realize we haven't given it enough time of discussing those possibilities. Listen again to one key word. I'm going to see if you pick up on it. All that Rand Carthon says during his comments from the question from Jim Wyatt.
What are you thinking?
Well, we're always open for business. All the guys, you got my number, call me. But no, it's always about just being open to try to continue to add value. And so we'll listen and field every call and kind of see what comes from it.
You mentioned.
Did you get it?
Value?
Value. Value. Because, I mean, what did you and I sit here and talk about John Robinson the day John Robinson got fired by the Titans? And you had kind of come with this, what I thought was a really insightful opinion of John's his Achilles heel in this entire thing was getting overly obsessed with value.
He overvalued value.
Overvalued value. And it's why he didn't pay AJ. It's why he made some, I guess, draft picks of guys with injury history and different issues like that, because it was like, well, if it works out, it's great value. Turns out a lot of it just didn't work. So interesting to hear Rand use the word value too. And what could that mean? What is value to him? Is it adding additional draft picks? Again, you don't know, but certainly it did kind of switch that off in my brain where I'm like, wait, could he be looking to trade down here? First time I started to kick that question around.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a somebody who always thinks that, yes, the GM should answer every call and to at least listen to any type of situation that might occur when it comes to moving up, moving back, staying in picking, or whatever that happens. I think it is his job to listen and evaluate whatever presents itself to him. But let's ask everybody now and get the chat more involved this morning. What should the Titans do with their 11th overall pick? Trade up, trade down, or stick and pick at 11? What should the Tennessee Titans do with their 11th overall pick? Trade up, trade back, or stick and pick right there at 11. We'll get to all your comments here in a second, but first let me tell you guys about Wilson County Hyundai. That is where you should head for your next ride. Speak about value that's not overvalued, it's good value. That's at Wilson County Hyundai, because the Hyundai brand is tip-top technology when it comes to the cars that are being put out there on the market today, and they do not have that ridiculous luxury price when it comes to other brands. It's a great value brand, but you're not missing out on any type of technology or new features with your vehicles. You're getting great comfortability. You're getting fantastic gas mileage with a lot of different models with the Hyundai brand. Here's some more value for you. Wilson County Hyundai is in Lebanon, which means you don't have to pay those Nashville prices on your vehicle either. So go see our guy, Payne Bone, in Lebanon. Wilson County Hyundai is where to find them, and check them out, wilsoncountyhyundai.com.
Today's show is powered by BetMGM. Enjoy all of your favorite sports like never before with BetMGM. Sign up using the code, that's ATOZ Sports, and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. When you register for BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds bonuses as well. You really find out why they are the king of sportsbooks. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every game and every play means that much more. So sign up, the code ATOZ Sports. You use that code, you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit on BetMGM.com and the BetMGM app.
And Sam, today I'm rocking the BetMGM shirt. I wasn't on the show yesterday, but Tuesday night, BetMGM got my money because I picked Arkansas plus 5.5, where Tennessee Vols blew them out there in Thompson Bowling Arena. So whenever I lose with BetMGM, I give BetMGM the props. So that was Tuesday night. So I missed yesterday. So I had
like an intentional, like personal hedge on your?
No, part? I actually thought Arkansas would come in there and win. And then Zakai Ziegler tore his ACL, unfortunately, early in that game. And I was like, well, that's terrible for him. But I feel good about that bet now. And then it didn't happen.
Well, I've started to come around to the idea of like the personal hedge. Like if your team's got a big game going on, usually it's just the money line that I'll do, because I ask myself, okay, how much, this is a huge game that I obviously care about. How much money would I pay for my team to win this game right now? And if I'm like, hey, I'd pay $200 right now for them to win this game guaranteed, I go ahead and I put $200 on the opposing team money line. If my team wins, that's great. I bought the win in my, like that's a check
basically.
And if they lose, it softens the blow to have a nice little payday on there as well. So.
It's always a good philosophy, but you can only go to it so many times. You need to continue to not lose money. Yeah. All right, A to Z Sports here. So let's ask this question, get the chat more involved. A lot of comments, over 100 comments since we've asked it. The question is, what should the Titans do with their 11th overall pick? Should they trade up, trade down, or pick at 11? For those who missed it earlier, quickly, Rand Carthon asked by Jim Wyatt of the Titans at the NFL Combine about that.
What are you thinking?
Well, we're always open for business. All the guys, you got my number, call me. But no, it's always about just being open to try to continue to add value. And so we'll listen and field every call and kind of see what comes from it.
You mentioned.
So fielding every call, Sam, I will send you to the chat and see what everybody says there on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. What should the Titans do at 11? Should it be trade up, trade back, or pick at 11?
Tighten Up says pick at 11. Jordan Lowry says trading back is not a bad idea. Steven says pick at 11. Titans Kyle says trade down. Brandon Connor says trade down. Corey Smith says trade down. Zoe Almighty wants to pick at 11. Al Pierce trade down. Daft pick at 11. Jonathan says pick Bijan Robinson. That'd be quite controversial taking a running back in the first round with Derrick Henry still on your roster. Cade Carter says trade down. Mr. Jones says trade down. Jeff says stick and pick. Honky Tonk says trade down or stay put. Jason Lobb says pick at 11. We have Jeff saying pick Paris Johnson Jr. at 11. If he's gone, trade back. Jay says pick at 11. Paul says trade down. Clayton says trade back. Jimbo says trade the pick for Aaron Rodgers. Zach Bingham would like that.
I guess that is
another.
It's a fourth option that we didn't
trade
include,
the pick.
But Jimbo, I think that is a fair answer for this situation.
NJ Titans fan pick at 11. Joseph stick and pick. Quentin trade down. Devin trade down. Scott stay at 11. Brad says take a left tackle. Pistol Ramsey trade down. Andrew trade back. Mark D trade down. JR stay at 11. Rob pick 11. First time we have somebody saying trade up. The very first one, Austin, I'm surprised at the amount of people that are saying trade back, but Billy Jones, Michael Snyder, Nate Sperner, Xavier Cohen, Jared all saying stick and pick. So yeah, we're kind of torn on it, but I'm surprised a lot of people saying to trade back. Where are you at with this? What should the Titans do?
I think I do not think they should trade it for Aaron Rodgers, just to kind of put that out there. And I've been steady with that overall. I do think it's too risky to move up in this draft. And I think it's a big deal if you can fix left tackle in the first round of the 2023 draft. You have to be able to do that because left tackle is such a massive issue and an important position for the Tennessee Titans. And if it's Paris Johnson Jr., if that is your left tackle for the next 8 to 10 years, then you've got to get him right there at 11 and not get too greedy and think, because and Broderick Jones is the offensive lineman from Georgia, and I think that will give a lot of Titans fans PTSD of taking an offensive lineman from Georgia in the first round. I have heard that while he might be a good tackle or a very good tackle in the NFL, he might be an even better guard in the NFL. And so Broderick Jones, maybe not exactly the fit you're looking for, but if you think Paris Johnson Jr. is your tackle on the left side for at least the minimum of the next 8 years, I think you cannot risk trying to get cute, trading out of 11 and then dropping back to the late teens or early 20s, thinking you can, still get Paris Johnson later on. And so I think Paris Johnson Jr. and fixing left tackle needs to be the priority. So I lean towards stick and pick at 11, Sam. That's what I think needs to be the right move.
So I've gone back and forth on this, and I told you my eyes first got open to it when Ran had those comments, and I've been very adamant all offseason about the Titans don't need to trade up. I think they have no business trading up. I still believe that. I am officially all the way in the trade down camp. I think they need to trade down and trade down far if possible. And the reason being, Austin, I agree with you. Left tackle is an issue. Wide receiver is an issue. Offensive line as a whole is an issue where you're potentially, while you are looking for a left tackle, and that is valuable, you also might be looking for a couple interior offensive linemen too. But the main reason why is when I look at this draft class at both offensive line and wide receiver, which I'm sure you would agree are the two biggest draft needs right now. It'd be hard to see them taking a player in the first round that was not an offensive lineman or wide receiver or a quarterback in some crazy, chaotic scenario.
Yeah.
But I look at the names that I have written down here. Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Osiris Torrance, and DeJuan Jones as being the top 5 offensive linemen that could potentially go in the first round. Wide receivers, you have Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Jalen Hyatt, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. There are no slam dunks to me. There are no blue chippers that are going to for sure go in the top 10. I think there's concerns with just about all of them. And that can be reflected in mock drafts. I know mock drafts aren't the, end all be all when it comes to stuff, but if you go look at 3 mock drafts, they probably have 3 different offensive linemen being the first offensive lineman off the board. One of those 5. And so as things play out with the combine, things reshuffle, that will continue to change. And I know Paris Johnson's like the big name right now, so to speak. I don't think there's anybody here that is far and away above the rest of the group at either of those 2 positions. I think you could make a case for a lot of them. Because of that, the Titans might pick at 11 with 0 offensive linemen and 0 wide receivers drafted already. They might have their pick of the litter. Or you can still grab one of these elite few names, these top few names in the draft class, jump back and acquire future assets to fill the other holes, because not just one hole. And this is not like the offensive line. These are not Rashawn Slaters or Penei Sewells or these guys that have gone in the top 5 of drafts. And you're like, yep, he's going to start at left tackle for the next decade. There's a lot of unknown.
Yeah, there is a lot of unknown. And, Nate Burner says mock draft season kills me. I think you need to just, if you're an anti-mock draft person, I think you just need to reorganize how you view mock drafts in your mind, that it's an exercise to try to gather information and look at trends and team needs rather than sticking towards all those types of things. And then Matthew Gillenwater on Facebook is right here. He goes, the draft is a gamble. Nothing is a guarantee. Stacking as many picks as possible gives you more chances to get it right. Need to get rid of Henry. Well, the first half I agree with. The second half, the more hot takey thing there, that it can be controversial. Need to get rid of Henry for picks as well. That also frees up cap space the Titans desperately need. So, but the first half, Matthew, you're dead on with that. In the fact that, the Titans only have 6 draft selections in this draft and a lot more holes than 6 picks can fill. And they don't have a 4th round pick. John Robinson was very good drafting in the 4th and 5th round, but struggled in the 1st round. So, with picks, at 11, 41 overall, 72 overall, you got 3 picks in the top 72. That can give you a lot of value there as well. But I also, Sam, and I don't know how you do this, but whenever draft season approaches, usually Senior Bowl week is when I start really getting my mind prepared for the draft. And I start listening to a few NFL draft podcasts that I like and that I trust. And what I've kind of heard across multiple podcasts, multiple companies, and multiple people that do this for a living, that all they do is NFL draft, is that there's only like 14 first round picks. Only like 14 guys in this draft have first round grades. Now we know there are 31 first round picks this year because the Dolphins has theirs taken away. And so the Titans are at 11. And Anthony Richardson's a guy who's probably going to go top 10. That's not a first round grade type of guy. So the Titans right now are guaranteed to be able to say, hey, you can get a first round grade dude at number 11 and feel good about that. But if you trade back, now you might be playing with a drop off in talent for this particular draft. And I do think we have to always know that not every draft is created the same, that this year's draft does not sound like a good draft to me. There was a couple drafts, in the early 2010s that were just bad drafts. And you can go back and look at the top 10 and it's just like, there's not a lot of Pro Bowl guys in there. A lot of guys that didn't get second contracts that are now bouncing around the league or out of the league. And so not every draft is the same. What people are saying is that the 2024 draft class is probably a better draft class. But do the Titans want to wait on that? And that was the whole tanking conversation that you get into, is how much do you want to wait on that next draft class? And so it's like you get to the point where in the 7th round, and here's just a scenario. Maybe the Titans are in the 6th or 7th round and a team approaches them because they've got a guy on the board that they want to get. And the Titans are like, you know what? Our board's kind of empty. We don't like this draft class. So it might be worth trading this year's 6th or 7th for next year's 5th or 6th. And because you like the 24 class better, right? And so I think there's opportunities later in the draft to move back or to move around and to gain extra assets and values down the road. But I just think if Paris Johnson Jr. is your guy to fix left tackle, I feel good about that. And I don't know and I'll have you list the top 5 offensive linemen in this draft here in a second. But I feel like Paris Johnson Jr. and Peter Skronsky from Northwestern are probably your safest offensive linemen at the top of the draft. And once you get after those two, Broderick Jones, I mentioned, maybe he's a better fit at guard. And I don't know much about the others that you mentioned there, but maybe there's obviously some situations that you're not exactly sure about, but I think you have to really make sure that you can start chopping away and filling these holes. And Paris Johnson Jr., in my example, I think fills that at a big hole.
Yeah, so Peter Skronsky is another guy similar to Broderick Jones in some ways where he's probably I would say most people like Skronsky more than Paris Johnson. Like, he is the number one guy. He's just undersized right now, and so there's a good
short
chance,
arms, apparently.
short arms, so good chance he's moving to left guard, which that's great. Like, we all could use an elite left guard, but are you taking one? Are you taking one at 11 overall? It becomes the question. So I think a fit for him is a team that might have a complete offensive line and specifically need interior help. Paris Johnson is the big tackle prospect. There's no real questions about that, but there's guys like Osiris Torrance is a guy I look at too from Florida as a big tackle that has the upside to just fly up these draft boards. So while I agree with you in the premise of Paris Johnson being like your guy that you can pick at 11 to play left tackle, it's like I said too, I mean, the Titans have more than just one need on offensive line. They need interior help. They're going to need interior help. And you might not want to take Peter Skronsky or Broderick Jones at 11, but what about in the late teens? So, that's something that you can look at with a trade down, as well as what does Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon's big board look like come draft time of these offensive linemen? I think if you have like a surefire Paris Johnson is our guy and he's there, you're not in a spot to trade down. But if you value some of these guys that you think you can get later, instead of picking them at 11 to make sure you get them, I do like taking the risk of dropping back just because I think you just have so many holes. And here's a scenario that I have for you, Austin.
Well, I want to hear your scenario because I'm excited about your scenario. So hold tight.
I'm excited to get it out, as you can tell.
Okay. So Sam's got a trade back scenario that he wants to float out there to see if Titans fans like it or not. So let's get to Sam's trade back scenario real quick here on the show. But first, I'm going to tell everybody about our great sponsors, the Bone and Joint Institute. They can help you get back to the road to recovery whenever that unfortunate, untimely injury that happens in life. It's always inconvenient when you're dealing with some type of pain, whether it's an injury that happens or something that's just formulated itself over time. I know a lot of us working from home these days, not in your traditional office setup. Maybe you're getting some extra pain from those type of transitions. So make sure that you check out the Bone and Joint Institute to not let that pain linger anymore and go get it checked out. They've got a bunch of specialists there in Franklin that know how to deal with every type of injury and however it happens in life. And if it's you, if it's your son or daughter playing youth sports, if it's you playing intramural pickup sports in the yard, make sure that whenever it happens, Bone and Joint Institute is where to go. The region's destination for comprehensive sports orthopedics right there in Franklin, boneandjointtn.org.
Today's show is powered by BetMGM. Enjoy all your sports like never before with BetMGM. Sign up using the code ATOZ Sports and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. When you register with BetMGM, you'll gain access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, and daily boosted odds specials. With BetMGM at your fingertips, every play, every game means that much more. That's specifically, especially helpful this time of year. We're in March. There's a tournament coming up that I am a big fan of. I know Austin is a big fan of. Zach is a big fan of. So if you're looking and getting involved in that, get BetMGM at your fingertips and find out why they are the king of sportsbooks. That's the code. It's ATOZ Sports on the BetMGM app. And you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit.
Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older. Tennessee only. New customer offer. All promotions subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. First online real money wager only. Rewards issued with non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expires from 7 days from insurance. And for problem game of support, call Tennessee Redline 800-889-9789. All right, Sam, hit us with it. It is your draft trade back scenario for Rand Carthon and the Tennessee Titans. Again, we played the video a few times earlier in the show. Rand Carthon says, call me. We're open for business, always willing to listen to try to get that value. So, Sam, ring, ring, ring. Rand Carthon's phone calls, or maybe he's doing the calling for this scenario. We'll see what happens here. What do you got for us?
I think it could go either way. So, first, 3 teams that I looked at trading back to and ultimately decided against. Number 1 is the Green Bay Packers at number 15. I think the Washington Commanders at number 16 and the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 17.
Okay.
3 teams that could go get offensive line, that could go use a wide receiver. Green Bay might go get a receiver or a tight end at number 11 if they want to jump somebody to go get Michael Mayer or whoever else they have high on their board. Washington can use the O-line. Pittsburgh can use the O-line. But the team that I have the Titans trading back to is dropping from number 11 8 spots back to number 19 overall and trading with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need a lot and specifically are in a position to potentially, if one of those quarterbacks falls to 11, draft the quarterback, move up to go get a quarterback, but also go and protect their quarterback. The Buccaneers need interior offensive line more than anybody else, really. Outside of like the few terrible teams in this year's draft that are picking at the top of the draft. But if they have somebody like Peter Skoronski that they view as a potentially all-pro interior lineman, they need interior line help, and they have a rookie, quote-unquote, quarterback in Kyle Trask, maybe running things next year. That could be a move where I see the Buccaneers wanting their guy. And here is the price that I just to reference something.
Okay.
This is the Titans dropping back from 11 to 19. So the Buccaneers trading up from 19 to 11. Mm-hmm. In 2021, the Chicago Bears traded from number 20 to number 11. That was the move that they made.
Okay.
They traded the number 20 pick, a 5th round pick, a future first, and a future 4th to go up 9 spots and go get Justin Fields at the time. I don't know. I look at that price and I don't think that's quite what you get. But if you're able to pull a 3rd and an extra 4th out of a team to go back 8 spots like Tampa Bay, the Tennessee Titans could use those picks to fill immediate roster holes. Like immediate needs. You can take a receiver in the 2nd, another offensive lineman in the 3rd, another offensive lineman with your 3rd. Like you all of a sudden have a bunch of draft picks and potentially a future draft pick in a better draft class, like you mentioned in 2024. That would be the team that I call. That would be the team that I target. And I think that would be a starting price that you probably negotiate down from, but that you could realistically acquire 4 picks in the any 2 to 5 range, in the 2nd round to 5th round range for dropping back. And at that point, I mean, I don't care if it's Paris Johnson or Peter Skoronski or Osiris or whoever. As somebody in the chat, keenly mentioned, this is a gamble either way. This gives you more chances of finding help up front.
Yeah. Excuse me. So do you think, because in your 2021 draft, when the Bears went up to get Fields, they gave up the future 1st rounder. Do you think this would call for a future 1st rounder?
Probably not. I think it's a little different when
it's a quarterback.
It's a quarterback, and a team wants to go get a quarterback. The Bears were also jumping the Minnesota Vikings at the time, who wanted Justin Fields, so they were paying a premium to go up ahead of their divisional rival. Yeah. So, I mean, there are factors there, but I think, that's the question, is how much can you get? But if I told you that they traded the number 11 pick for the number 19 pick and added a third this year and a 3 next year, like,
I think that's too light. And so, I think,
that's too light, but I'm still signing up for, like, you could get even more, which is,
I think it would need to be, because you would get 19 here in this draft, and then you would get, what'd you say? So a third rounder this year,
a third rounder this year, a third rounder next year. I mean, obviously I'm kind of,
so you would basically have
what the price would be, but
yeah. So I believe the Bucks pick 80 or 81 in the third round of this year. So let's say you would then have 4 picks in the top 80 to 81 picks this season, if that was it, right? And I do think you would need something more for 2024. And maybe, again, I don't know what the value, like we've said multiple times, is that this draft is not viewed as a great draft. And so I don't think the price for the Titans moving back 8 spots is going to be that great. And so that's where you wonder, at 19, who are the Titans going to get? How many of these O-linemen are going to be gone? Because you look at O-line needy teams, especially if you think the Bucks are a team that could use an offensive lineman at 11. You've got the Jets at 13 that need O-line. You've got the Texans are at 12. They will probably go wide receiver at 12 with their second pick. You've got the Packers need an offensive lineman.
But the Packers also need a wide receiver, right? So there's another potential. It's like, hey, the Houston's picking one, but you can jump Houston and have your pick if there's one guy that you like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if at 19 you're probably having to draft Osiris Torrance out of Florida, who is, what position is he on the offensive line? It's kind of up for debate at that. And you're probably going to have to, quote unquote, reach on that pick at 19. Like, taking Torrance at 19 is probably also not the best value there. So
yeah, I kind of disagree with that. I do disagree. Like, I think you can get in a very dangerous spot here where you're potentially reaching at 11 just to take your need at your spot. Like because of what I said, I don't believe there is a slam dunk talent on the offensive line or at wide receiver this year. Like, there's nobody that you are.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like, there's not a consensus top 10 pick or top 10 talent on either the O-line or wide receiver.
And like I said, it depends on how Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel evaluate that talent. Like, obviously, if they have Paris Johnson as their, like, well, this is the guy out of this draft class, and he's only draftable at 11. He's not going to make it down further than that. Then, yeah, you go ahead and you can draft him. But if you have a little bit less of a gap between him and some of these other prospects, or like I said, if you are more open to drafting interior linemen with positional flexibility like Peter Skoronski later in the draft, or like Broderick Jones later in the draft, then you open yourself up to, hey, we can drop back 4, 5, 6 spots, right? And still be in range to take one of those guys. And by the way, if offensive line's gone, we'll take Jackson Smith and Jigba, fill the wide receiver hole now, and then try and do some other stuff at offensive line.
And you
have options.
Yeah. Well, and here's the truth is we don't know exactly what's going to happen in free agency. And this trade is not going to happen until draft night. Like,
right.
the Titans are not going to move out of 11 until, like, they're on the board and you saw who went in the top 10. And, the Bears could trade their pick whenever the hell they feel like it, and they like the value because, that's the first pick. But the Titans are not going to make any type of move until they're really on the clock. And so I do kind of agree with David. Wait, where did he go? David, 2 comments real quick. Matthew Gilwater says, Austin and Sam, given the fact the Titans can't afford to miss on O-line again, wouldn't it not be better to sign a proven talent in free agency at that position? And that's where I was getting at, is the Titans have the ability that free agency is chronologically before the draft. And so does your offensive line change at all, before the draft to say, hey, maybe you filled one of your guard spots, or maybe you'd filled a tackle spot in free agency to have that flexibility? Because David Brown on YouTube brings this up, and I agree with him. Sam, if you're going to trade from 11 to 19, for example, I think you might as well trade back again in 19.
I would be open. I mean, I think it depends what's there. Like, I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
I think if one of your O linemen is still there or one of those top receivers is still there and you're at it, then you're at a spot where it's like, all right, grab your guy. But I mean, if you're just trying to accumulate draft picks, yeah. I mean, I just think that because they have so many needs on offensive line, I think the Titans are in a spot where they really have options available to them in both the draft and free agency and everything. I mean, even Mike Vrabel still hasn't ruled the idea of Taylor Lewan returning. Now, is Taylor Lewan returning as their starting left tackle? I hope not, because you need more help and more of a guarantee than that. But yeah, I mean, what if they do add a veteran tackle in free agency that you view as a solid starter? Well, now you no longer have an imminent need for a starting tackle, and maybe somebody like Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, like these guys that I'm mentioning that are interior talents, but you think are really, really special interior talents, are more of a fit. And don't take that at 11 just because you need it and you're at 11. Like, you have to be open-minded to falling back and picking 8 spots later.
I agree. And just like Rand Carthon saying that, number 11's open for business, Sam, I think all 5 starting offensive line spots for the Titans are also open for business. Yep. I don't think NPF is a guaranteed lockdown at right tackle. For what he showed, he's probably the surest thing you've got as far as a starter goes. And we'll have to find out what Ben Jones's future is. Both guards, Nate Davis, a pending free agent, who's been your right guard. Aaron Brewer, I think, is probably a part of the picture at some point, even though we know how undersized that he is and how that can come back to bite the Titans at times. And thank God Dennis Daly is not under contract. As I don't know, Sam, how many comments, there's been so many comments on our Instagram and everywhere else about cut Dennis Daly. He is not under contract.
He's not on the team anymore.
Yeah, so he is not there. Neither is Josh Dobbs, for that matter. But all right, so Sam, a couple comments that I saw here from the chat that take us to our next conversation. Borkington says Jalen Carter having an arrest warrant could throw the draft into chaos. The Bears wouldn't want to drop past the Cardinals now. And then Jeff brings up the same thing with Carter in trouble. Do the Bears even trade now? Maybe they stick and pick Will Anderson at number 1. So let's get to that here in a second, because it is an awful situation, right? I do want to preface this Jalen Carter conversation with this is not good for anybody. It is a very sad story. So to update everybody on this, how everything went down is this was a few days after the Georgia Bulldogs won the national championship over TCU. There was a car accident in Athens that resulted in the death of Georgia teammate Devin Willock, and then also Georgia recruiting staffer Chandler LaCroix. And in that situation that came out, that it was initially viewed as a one-car incident where that car wrecked, and then both LaCroix and Willock passed away from that situation. And that Jalen Carter initially told the police that he was 1 mile or so away when that accident occurred, and then he got to the scene very quickly once he was aware of the situation. And there's a lot of sadness that goes into that, and it is a terrible situation. But there was an update from the NFL Combine that broke yesterday morning about the arrest warrant for Jalen Carter, who is probably, if you're going positionless, the number 1 player on the big board overall. But this was from the arrest warrant here as a result of the ongoing investigation of January 15th, the fatal crash that occurred right there in Athens, Clark County. The police department has secured arrest warrants for Jalen Carter for reckless driving and racing. The investigation found that Chandler LaCroix, driving a 21 Ford Expedition, and Jalen Carter, driving a 2021 Jeep Trackhawk, were operating their vehicles in a manner consistent with racing shortly after leaving the downtown Athens area at about 2:30 a.m. The evidence demonstrated that both vehicles switched between lanes, drove in the center turn lane, drove in the opposite lanes of travel, overtook other motorists, and drove at a high rate of speed in an apparent attempt to outdistance each other. Evidence indicates that shortly before the crash that the Expedition was traveling at about 104 miles per hour. The toxicology report indicated that LaCroix's blood alcohol concentration was 1.97 at the time of the crash. Investigators determined that the alcohol impairment, racing, reckless driving, and speed were significant contributing factors to the crash. And so Jalen Carter then did release a statement yesterday about the situation. And I did see that he has already gone back to Athens for this. But the statement from Jalen Carter was, quote, "This morning," and this is from yesterday, "this morning I received a telephone call from the Athens, Georgia Police Department informing me that 2 misdemeanor warrants have been issued against me for reckless driving and racing. It is my intention to return to Athens to answer the misdemeanor charges against me and to make certain that the complete and accurate truth is presented. There is no question in my mind that when all the facts are known, that I will be fully exonerated of any criminal wrongdoing," end quote, from Jalen Carter. So this is a very serious situation. And again, I want to reiterate, a very terrible, sad situation as a whole. But, and to correct myself, 0.197 on the blood alcohol content, not what I mentioned. I moved the decimal there speaking. But so Carter went back, did surrender himself, and then was released after posting bond in this situation. But it is a really, really bad situation. And unfortunately, the football side of it is that Jalen Carter was expecting to be at least a top 3 or 4 pick in this draft. So the question we want to ask you guys is, should this arrest warrant negatively impact his NFL draft stock? Because as Borkington and others said, that, how will this throw this draft around if this comes out at the NFL Combine and where Carter has to go do this? So the question, should this impact Jalen Carter's draft stock in a negative fashion? And so, these are misdemeanors. We do know that. And so Valentino comes in with a no out of the gates. Sam, what's your overall thought on the situation, as you are a Chicago native, a Bears fan, and Jalen Carter was probably the apple of the Bears' eye going into this draft to fill that need with a super talented player?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, like, it is going to mess things up because you at least have to have the conversation and like figuring out where teams, what side of the aisle they're on when it comes to like drafting Jalen Carter is going to be an very, very interesting just thing to watch play out, especially with a team looking to trade out of the number 1 pick with their eye on drafting him potentially. And then I don't know. It really, really complicates things. And you hate it for Jalen Carter. You especially hate it for the families of the 2 young people that were dead in the accident. You hate it for the teams. You hate it for Carter's family, everybody. It's a terrible situation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's obviously a fine line to toe here, but my opinion is no. I don't think this should impact Jalen Carter's draft status. I don't know if it will. I don't know what these front offices are thinking, how they view this, whatever. And there may be more information to come out. But I mean, these are misdemeanor charges. This is a clear and obvious mistake on Jalen Carter's part and shows some signs of immaturity to be, reckless endangerment, speeding, racing, all of this stuff, like just not safe. And when you hear the blood alcohol content too of the driver operating the other vehicle, that's concerning as well too. I guess, was Jalen Carter drinking? I mean, you don't, I guess they never found it and they can't prove it, but like, I mean, you have to start raising those questions. So at the end of the day, I do view it though as a young man making a mistake with terrible judgment. But these are misdemeanor charges. And as long as there is no serious criminal involvement or other criminal charges, or that it's proven that he was like directly responsible for the deaths and for this accident happening, I think this is just a sign of immaturity, which, yeah, it could be a red flag for teams, but also like that is part of the job of coaches, is to kind of work this immaturity out of some of these kids and bring them in and, develop them as a person while you also develop them as a player. And there are certain coaches that really take that responsibility seriously.
Absolutely. And I think those coaches should do that. I think the best coaches are also helping the people become the best players and the best humans that they can be. And Jeff says, he was charged with speeding and reckless driving. So those are both misdemeanors.
Well, and I want to say this to Jeff, that he was definitely a factor in the crash. Being a factor does not mean he did something illegal, right? I mean, it's illegal, but doesn't mean he was a direct cause of it, right? Like, I mean, there are more details that need to come out to this, like in order to indict Jalen Carter as like being responsible for those two people's deaths. Just like participating in something with poor judgment, I don't think is fair to put that burden or that label on this guy at 21 years old, shortly after winning a national championship. I'm sure they were celebrating whatever they were.
I mean, that's people do dumb stuff when they're in college, and you have that feeling of invincibility at times in those ages, especially if you just won your second consecutive national championship 4 days before. And so again, a terrible situation overall. And so I do think it's interesting. Honestly, I don't see how it doesn't impact things a little bit. I do think he will still be a very high draft pick, but I want to play this from Todd McShay, because Sam, we talked about this previously before the show. Todd McShay went on ESPN and about the draft and talked about Jalen Carter's situation off the field on December 15th. 1 month exactly before January 15th, when the accident occurred. And here was Todd McShay again from December.
It's interesting with Carter because we all agree it doesn't take a super scout to figure out that he's a phenomenal player in the interior. Mm-hmm. With Carter, there's some character issues. Does he get along with everybody? What's he like to deal with in the locker room? Those sorts of issues. I know it's early in the process, but I'm forewarning everyone out there. Carter's going to be kind of a hot button name when we talk about some of the intangible aspects of it. I think, though, with Pete Carroll sitting here at number 2, who has a long history of taking guys that have quote-unquote questionable character and then developing them and having it work out, it makes a lot of sense to me. But that will be the big discussion. It's not about his talent. It's not about his size. It's not about his explosive takeoff or finishing as a pass rusher. It's about the character. Do we want to bring that guy into the building?
So, yeah, I mean that is the question, right? And so, like, Jeff, I'm following up on something that Jeff said, which kind of is related to that, but like reports that he had character issues and it's red flags. I agree with what Jeff is saying, but as somebody else points out down here, Cole, look at Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, there are examples of NFL players all throughout the league that maybe had a question here or a question there about their character or immaturity or whatever it was coming out of college. And you have to keep in mind that these are very, very young men coming out that, do make mistakes and show lack of judgment. And, sometimes when you nurture them correctly with a head coach and an environment in the NFL, they can flourish and they can grow because of it. I think that, and that's just my personal take on it, where I believe in, I believe that he deserves a chance to prove people wrong.
Oh, and I don't think or anybody is saying that he will go undrafted. I think this might impact some things. And Cole does say that this is the same situation as Jeffrey Simmons' situation. It is absolutely not, no. Cole. So Jeffrey Simmons had his situation when he was a senior in high school before he graduated, where Jalen Carter had his situation happen, a month and a half before he was set to be at the NFL Combine. And so there's a 4 years or so difference in those, people's lives of those, and the situations were very different. Jeffrey Simmons was involved in a situation that unfortunately was a family related matter where Jalen Carter was racing, is being charged with racing and reckless driving at 2:30 in the morning in a car accident that resulted in the death of 2 people from the University of Georgia. So they are very different in their situations. But Jeffrey Simmons did negatively affect his draft stock. The ACL was more impactful in Jeffrey Simmons' draft stock than what happened in high school. And Jeffrey Simmons also had the benefit of being at Mississippi State and in college and maturing and working through that in a highly public situation for 3 years as well. So there is a little bit of a difference there. And Jeffrey Simmons has answered every question about that situation. I think Amy Adams Strunk and Mike Vrabel and John Robinson, when that draft pick was made, all of those conversations happened and they were very transparent about it. And Jeffrey Simmons has done nothing but be what exactly you should hope he should be since then. And so I think, Jeffrey Simmons being a high school senior and Jalen Carter being a 21-year-old college athlete who is on his way to being a top 5 draft pick, there are different situations there. But yeah, I think and Todd McShay got attacked for saying that in December. He didn't have specific situations that he could cite, right? And when you're doing a TV hit, you only have 45 seconds to get a point across. And so you can't exactly dive into things, but Todd McShay, broad brush, said those types of things. He got attacked for it. But ironically, and unfortunately, a month later, things happened that went along with some of the things that Todd McShay was saying, that, Jalen Carter's off the field will be a storyline in this draft season. And here we are on March 2nd, March 1st, where that's exactly the case. And Titans Kyle adds that Adam Schefter just tweeted that Jalen Carter is back in Indianapolis for measurements after going back to Athens and, doing what he had to do with the arrest warrants for the misdemeanors. And so, he is handling this the right way. And so I do want to add that. So we'll have to see how it plays out, but it is going to make some things tricky, hypothetically, over the next couple of months.
It's also, and I don't know, again, this is kind of a fine line to toe, but like the Jalen Carter situation is very different from a lot of the off the field issues that you hear about with athletes all the time. I mean, these are concerns that come up, but speeding and racing and reckless endangerment for being a bad driver is not intended to hurt or harm anybody. And so this is, to me, a poor exercise of judgment. So, like, in terms of character, that is where I do have an issue with some of the things that have been said, maybe by Todd McShay. I don't know what examples he knows or what he has heard, but I'm not ready to say Jalen Carter has character issues. I'm ready to say Jalen Carter demonstrated poor judgment in a scenario that wound up very sad and unfortunate for everybody.
I would agree.
This is not like Jalen Carter has a violent history or has, this is a situation that was not intended to harm or hurt anybody. Unfortunately, wound up with that. And I'm sure he is dealing with the pain and the struggle of that on its own. And it's just an example of somebody that needs to learn the hard way, I guess, unfortunately, in this specific instance, what is and is not okay, what is and is not safe, what is smart and just completely over the line. But like, I don't think that this puts him in the bucket of like, character issues, off the field issues. Like, and that's where I'm hesitant to say it should or would affect his draft stock. And I hope that it doesn't. And that when Jalen Carter has the opportunity to go into interviews with teams, that they are able to, I guess, correctly, assess him. And that, I don't know. Well,
it's tough. And, it's a, what's character versus what's immaturity. And so there's a lot of conversations that will happen. So we'll kind of see how that plays out, but it's a big story.
I got to say something else too, because I'm seeing the chat go off. More details need to come out. Jalen Carter's stupidity did not kill 2 people. I'm just going to say that. I have to say that because Jalen Carter was involved in the situation. Jalen Carter did poor judgment. This is different than Jalen Carter was drunk driving, hit a car, and killed people. Like, don't say that this kid killed people. Other people had to make a choice to get in that car. The other driver of the car, as sad as and unfortunate as it is, was operating a motor vehicle, also racing, also driving that speed while intoxicated and over double the legal limit. So I don't appreciate those comments that are labeling this kid as like responsible for these deaths when it's not something that was a direct cause of his. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that, or if I'm getting too out of.
No, I mean, I think what you're saying is valid. It's a awful, terrible situation, and it's it's something that's so newsworthy that has to be discussed because of how it impacts the NFL draft. A to Z Sports here live on this Thursday show. Sam, normally the Magic Bucket wraps up Thursday, but the Magic Bucket is at Zach's house, and Zach is not at his house. Zach is traveling, but we will not do the Magic Bucket today, and instead we will ask Sam about things that he may or may not have done from his early childhood or maybe even before he was born that we all think is funny. So ask Sam, have you done this here in a second? But first, let me tell everybody about Farm Bureau Health Plans. You can plan on them for your health coverage. They've been doing it, serving Tennesseans for now over 75 years, and they do a great job of helping out whatever stage of life you're in. If you need health coverage, they got you covered right there. Health, dental, vision, and more. They do a fantastic job with the senior citizens in your life. Also, if you're looking to get into adulthood and you have no idea how to deal with health coverage and those plans, Farm Bureau Health Plans can help educate you and teach you and help you get through that situation to have good coverage, but not also have ridiculously high rates. Zach talks about this all the time. He saved 20% per month when he switched to Farm Bureau Health Plans, and you can do the same type of thing too. It's super easy to do as well. Check them out, fbhp.com/ATOZ.
Today's show is powered by BetMGM. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. You sign up on the BetMGM app using the promo code ATOZ Sports. You can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit. Make every game and every play mean that much more with BetMGM and BetMGM.com by getting access to a wide selection of live betting options, player props, daily boosted odds specials, all of the above with BetMGM. So that's BetMGM.com, BetMGM app, promo code ATOZ Sports.
Man, already people are flying in here with questions to ask Sam.
Before we do that, I do have this because I saw some comments about it. We have a couple paid chats that we did not address. Okay. And it is our job to address the lunch money. So I saw Kane and I believe it was Andre putting some chats in here. So Kane says he sent A to Z a blueprint on a highly impactful mock draft. What do you think he means by highly impactful mock draft?
Kane, can you resend it? Because I don't know. I don't know where you sent it to. So resend it.
Twitter. What's the best way to send it? Twitter, email.
Twitter DM is usually probably the best.
That'll get through for sure.
Yeah.
So I personally, Kane, can give you a guarantee that I'm reading that mock draft when it gets sent later this afternoon. And then Andre says he wants to let Wright and NPF battle for left tackle. Number 11 could be gold. How do you feel about that?
I don't think NPF has left tackle ability. I think he's a right tackle. So that's kind of how.
And I would also ask like who he has at right tackle in this scenario.
Yeah, right. Well, the loser of that battle.
Oh, the loser of that battle just goes to right tackle. I think they've settled on NPF at right tackle, so you need to try and target a left tackle specifically before you just you want to get more guys that are locked into one position and have more of a defined role. But just wanted to address those real quick because I saw Andre saying that we skipped those.
Yeah.
We try not to skip those. We just have to make sure we see them. So
sometimes
happy to circle back and talk about them though.
For sure. Sometimes the super chats come in when we ask a question, and then we get a bunch of chats that comments at the same time that make our feed fly away, kind of. So all right. So Sam, I had some things pulled up to ask you if you've ever tried or done some of these things with your young age. But I didn't even need to be prepared because the chat came in strong with this. So Devin asked Sam, have you ever had to tell your mom or dad to get off the phone because you were waiting on your crush to chat on AIM?
No, I don't know what that is. I don't.
Have you ever had a situation where you were unable to use the internet because somebody was also on the phone?
No.
Does that make any sense to you?
I mean, no. I don't. I guess no. That has never. I can assure you that has never happened to me. So.
Brian says, Sam, have you ever drank water out of a yard water hose?
Yes.
Have you ever drank water? Because you played.
That's not an age thing. That's just like a.
Well,
I guess
maybe.
kids today probably don't do it because they're inside on their iPads and stuff.
Yeah. And they're drinking out of their filtered water and in their fridges that they can talk to. Have you ever drinking out of a water horse where it's like a hose pipe situation where, you know, we had these in like football where you hook the hose up to a pipe that is up on, you know, legs, and the pipe has like 5 or 6 different hole spouts. So like football water break, you turn the hose on and like 5 guys can go get a sip at the same time. Have you ever drank it out of a water hose?
I had those for in high school baseball. We had those, but we didn't use it quite like there was little extensions, like attachments to the end of it that had its own little like squirter.
Okay, so you've never
like
used the old school. So you've never drank in
water.
water.
I've never bent over sideways and drank it out of like that. But
You've never drank in water out of a PVC pipe with 5 teammates at the same time.
I suppose no.
It's quite the experience. Let's see more of these that are pretty good. Have you ever used a cassette player?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like in cars and stuff. Yeah.
Denise asks, have you ever plugged in a speaker to your television to make it louder?
I don't know if I've personally done that, but I'm sure it has been done around me before. I don't think I've ever had to do that though.
Did you ever use LimeWire?
No. I've heard of LimeWire. No, I couldn't tell you what it is. No idea.
Have you ever?
What is LimeWire?
LimeWire was one of the big main ways you would illegally download music to burn CDs and other types of things.
I have not used it. No.
Have you ever used a public phone, like payphone or any type of public phone?
No. Weirdly enough, no. I don't think I have. Which I don't know if that's an age thing or just like a circumstance thing.
That's an age thing. I've only used a public phone like a select few times.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a spot where I needed one.
Yeah. All right. More let's see. More comments. There's a lot of comments flying in about like, have you ever burnt a CD?
No. Also, no. I've used burned CDs, but I have never done it myself.
Man,
CDs, video games, movies, all of it, burning it onto a disc. Yeah.
Last one. Do you remember what your first ringtone was on your cell phone? Did you ever have a song as your ringtone?
The only one I can remember actually having, which is very weird for the segment that we're doing because it's not at all like my era, was Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith.
As your ringtone.
I was young too. I was a young, I liked that song though.
That's really funny.
Pistol Ramsey asked me if I'd ever been to a Bears playoff game. I was in the building for the double doink game.
Ooh.
And that was tough for young me to process at the time. That was a hard one.
Yeah.
I thought of my own my own one that I realized I hadn't done the other day, and it's absurd. It's not an age thing. It's just a weird. This is gonna blow some people's minds. I have never had I don't know if you call it a slice of watermelon.
What?
I've never really had. I think I've had watermelon once, and it was like 1 cube of watermelon that I had. I've never had watermelon.
You've like never been at the pool or something. As a kid.
You know what I'm talking about, like
yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, everybody else knows what you're talking about. But
I've never done that ever. I've never had watermelon.
you've had like cubes of watermelon, like
I've
store
had,
bought.
I think I've had a singular cube of watermelon,
That is wild,
like one bite of watermelon in my entire life.
man. I mean,
I realized that the other day. I was like, man, I don't think I've ever like.
that is bonkers. And so, like the neighborhood pool, like
Well,
somebody's mom would come in and slice up a whole watermelon.
No, yeah, everywhere I would go, there would be watermelon. Everywhere I would
You
go.
just never went for
But
it?
I don't know. I had it one time. I had like a slight, like one cube or something. And I just didn't like it, and I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
and then like I don't know if I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan, and then I didn't get the hype. I was always more of like I like citrusy fruit. Like I like stronger, like oranges and strawberries and stuff like that. But yeah, I was never a big. Not a melon fan in general, like all melons
Oh
are
my
kind of I'm out on.
gosh.
But it was a very weird thing. I was sitting there. I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw somebody like eating like on TV or whatever. Somebody's eating a slice of watermelon, and I'm just like,
It's so refreshing. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
I know it's like a childhood staple that like you like at the pool after a baseball game, whatever. Everybody's got their like watermelon as like their snack. I'm like, I've never had watermelon like that.
Ken is inviting you to the cookout to help you learn some things. I think that I am just
I will have some watermelon. Like maybe that'll be added to the magic bucket. Like Sam just has
Sam
to eat
well, that's
watermelon.
not like a bad thing. That's just doing something that you should have done like 20 years ago.
Well, for me, it might be kind of a bad. Like I don't know if I like it. I don't know if my
Oh
taste
God,
buds have
that is-
changed.
I am confused of like how you just never
And
like
here's the weirdest thing too. Like I don't consider myself to be. I was when I was a kid, but I'm not a picky eater anymore. Like I like trying stuff, but I've never really come across a thing. I think now it's more of a I'm not buying and slicing a watermelon like straight, and I like not happening. And I don't really have a need to just like eat watermelon cubes on my own, so it just doesn't happen. So I don't know. That I told you it was going to be a weird one. It's kind of absurd, but
I'm kind of speechless on this.
yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for jumping in today. Whenever the magic bucket is left somewhere that it's not normally, then we could just ask Sam things that he's never done in his young age. But that'll do it for us on this Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow morning on a Friday to wrap up the week. Buck Rising is wrapping up his week tonight at the NFL Combine. So get ready for A to Z Sports Primetime tonight. That's 7 p.m. Central Time, up 1 hour because Buck's up in Indy at Eastern Time Zone. So 7 p.m. Central for A to Z Sports Primetime tonight. Make sure you like the show before you go. Give us that thumbs up, hit on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll check you guys later on a Friday morning. Hey, we've got an announcement coming at 10 a.m. Central. That's 34 minutes from now. Announcement. So we'll see you guys later on. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Appreciate it as always.